G'day everybody and welcome to today's episode of the podcast. In today's episode, I'm chatting with someone who changed my life, a man named Bhakti. Bhakti is a counsellor who I saw about 10 years ago, and quite simply, he changed my life. In this chat, we spoke about that. We speak about his processes as a counsellor. We speak about all things mental health. Bhakti is also an amazing musician and composer, and we talk about the impact of music on his life. Before I go on, please subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Everything really helps. So without further ado, sit back and relax and enjoy my chat with the amazing Bhakti Das. Bhakti Das, hello my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's really an honor for me. I want to start by asking you a musical question. Do you remember the first album you ever owned?
Yes.
Ooh,
Carole
nice.
King, Tapestry.
What a absolute
Etched
cracker.
into my brain. I still remember the party where I first saw it. It was at a party at Judith Book's place, who was kind of not like the most popular girl in the group, but she had Carole King Tapestry. That made me idolize her, and I went out the next day and bought my first vinyl.
What? How old were you?
Maybe 12.
Wow.
Maybe more, because it was a party. So it could have been 15 or something.
Was there booze?
Probably not.
Nice.
Not that
Good
early.
boy,
and
good
definitely
boy.
not at Judith Book's place.
Okay. Good old Judith.
Good old Judith. She's a transcendental meditator now.
Oh, wow. So you're still in contact?
Still in contact every now and again. Every time I, end up back in New Zealand.
Yeah, wow. And so when you bought Tapestry, how did that change your life?
It's still changing my life. Like, I still listen to it. I actually had the thought, because I've started doing this devotional singing in the morning, and I've been co-opting these songs like Hymn to Love, L'Hymne à l'Amour, by Edith Piaf, and changing it from a romantic song to a devotional song. And then I thought, you've got a friend. That could so easily be turned to the dark side, to the light side.
Depending on your perspective.
Exactly. Perspective is everything. But yeah, no, I mean, that's still, I can still see a YouTube of Aretha Franklin singing Natural Woman for Obama, and Carole King just going
Yeah,
nuts.
I saw that. Wasn't that incredible? And that wasn't long before Aretha left us.
Yeah. Well, she's still with us. She left the body.
Yeah, she left the body indeed.
What a body.
Yeah, what a set of vocal cords. Wow. Incredible woman. Did you play music at that time?
Yes. I
Right.
started playing when I was 12. I remember my brothers and sisters had all been, taken to music lessons and classical and whatever. And I remember driving around the bays, Oriental Bay, going into town in the backseat of the car. And I remember the moment, like a brain fart came out. I want to learn modern piano. I have no idea where that came from.
Wow.
And Dad, who had a mate called Bob Barcham, who was a muso, but who spanned both worlds. Like, he could write his own music like that. So he knew everything you could know about music and arranging and whatever. So I'd go there, he'd write a song. The first one was Dream dream, dream, dream. And it was like he just taught me bass note, chord, and then melody, and then second week was putting them together. And so we did that for a couple of years until my ear was good enough and I was able to, you know, I'd go back to him and he'd go, that's not what I wrote. And I go, yeah, but that's how it sounds on the radio.
Yeah, nice.
So, yeah, I kind of said to Mum and Dad, you know, you don't need to keep paying every week. I can kind of do this myself now. The only thing I regret, and here you kind of get into the karma of life agenda, and is the part of me that regrets not having hung in to learn how to read music. But there's an equal and opposite part of me that goes, but I've lived music and I've played every day and it's become, you know, this instrument. I've become this instrument of music because I've played long enough for stuff to come through that's not me trying to play music. And I wonder if I had have learned how to read music, I just wonder what that would have done. Yeah. All I know is I never had the patience.
Me neither.
So there's that kind of, the part of me that goes, oh, well, if you learned, you could play the technical jazz and you could play the classical and la 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 la. And there's the part of me that goes, I look around and I see how few people play music and I just go, thank the Lord that I still play music. And who cares if I can't read music.
Is it a true love affair with music?
Oh, yes. Like, you know, this is my love.
Oh,
and
wow.
I got that love.
Is that an electric piano sitting inside? Oh, no. I say there's a grand piano on its
there's
side.
There's a grand piano, and that, yeah, that's low because my darling Dominique doesn't like the kind of mess. So that actually fits under the piano so that everything can be nice and neat.
Hidden from the view of the world.
Well, you know, so I whip it out and whip it in, and don't take that the wrong way.
Let's get
like
into music.
I got the piano, like I spent my whole earlier life sneaking around looking for nice pianos to play. We had a baby grand when I was young, and then we moved house to a smaller house. Dad bought an organ, which was fun for about a week.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my God. And then later on, of course, I can't believe you sold our baby grand piano. And then it took, I don't know how many, something like 30 years where I would just sneak into halls or find, and then you're always looking over your shoulder. And in the same month that I found the piano, because I'd been playing out at this chapel and they had a Kawai 6'6" mid-grand, and it was just like, I'll have what I'm having. And then there was I saw a little ad in the newspaper, 6'6" grand, Kawai, and it was, I think, $8,000, and I was going, what's wrong with it? Anyway, I went there, I played it, and it was just like, you the man,
love
you the one.
At first touch.
Absolutely, and it still is. And I've played Bosendorf's, I've played Steinways, and I still love mine. The sound just speaks to me. It's soft, it's mellow. So I think you can probably get a sense there's still a love affair there. And I got the piano in the same month that I got my darling Dominique. When I say got, she cost a lot more than $8,000.
That's very unlike you to say something so politically incorrect.
I'm still paying, pal.
She's a
but
wonderful
she's worth
woman.
Every cent.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
I mean, interestingly enough, there's a little story that goes with the piano, because, of course, I couldn't even afford the $8,000, even though it was like nearly half price in terms of second hand, whereby I did this good deed. My mother-in-law was going away the next day. She needed all of her invoices doing. I was still up in Mittagong and she's in Mossman, and I went, look, I'll drive down. We'll work through the night. We'll get your invoices done so that you can go without all this stuff, on your mind. So I did that, drove down, doing the invoices, and I see this invoice. She's doing the, design for these $2 million houses in Kirribilli that, she puts the furniture in to make them look fabulous so that people buy them. Mm. And there I noticed that she's hiring this baby grand piano for $3,000 a month. And I just said to her, Mama, I'll buy a fucking piano and rent it to you for $3,000 a month. She said, sure, fine, no worries. I literally, next day, went out on Gumtree, bought a baby grand, fabulous looking, $6,000 Kawai, 5'3", bought it, put it in the house. At the end of the month, they sold the house, and they said, could we hire it for another month, please, because we've got the house next door to sell. I said, are you serious? So literally 2 months later, I've got $6,000, which is why I could afford my absolute dream.
Nice.
Which was for $2,000.
Amazing.
It's the divine Leela, the divine play.
The universe.
It just shows you, no good deed goes unpunished.
And so they tell me.
Exactly.
What difference do you notice on any level, really, emotionally or physiologically, between listening to great music and playing music yourself?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Thank you.
I wish I had a really good answer. Okay. What comes to me is I wouldn't be playing music if I hadn't and didn't listen to great music. So definitely the chicken comes before the egg. Like, you have to hear music before you're inspired to play it. Also, interestingly enough, just, because we're telling stories, I only just learnt that Australia is the birthplace of music.
Is that right?
It is right, because you know how humans go back to, like, all humans came from Africa, all birds came from Australia. And birds were the first music, and humans mimicked the birds.
Wow.
Hence, all music came from Australia first.
That's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
So when you're sitting at the piano and you're composing, say, for argument's sake.
Why do we have to argue about it? Couldn't we just have a pleasant discussion about it?
For those listening, I forget about your incredible use of semantics.
Sorry. It's just the semen. It's still in me, even though I'm old,
When you're sitting there playing, I'm just going to plow straight ahead and do my best to ignore it.
That's it.
And you're sitting there playing a piece of music. Let's say that you're composing.
Yes.
How does that compare to listening to something truly extraordinary?
Oh, they're so different. They're so different. And I'll put in brackets at the beginning of this what my peak experience of listening to music is, because only a few musicians in the world are able to do this. Mm-hmm. And they're ones like Keith Jarrett,
Wow.
Who's the guy who does Rack 3 in the movie and Shine? Helfgott. David Helfgott.
Yeah.
And a few others where they are... Errol Garner.
Yeah.
Where they've been playing music long enough whereby they are just the conduit and the channel. So they're playing the music But at one and the same time, they're allowing whatever it is that's the multiplicity between who they are and their fingers and their mind, add in soul and whatever it is and wherever music comes from. And then there's these moments where their fingers read mind, body, soul, does stuff, and you can see them absolutely entertained by what just got played. That for me is the ultimate listening experience. Like, I mean, I saw David Helfgott playing Rack 3 with 2 pianos in the Opera House in Sydney.
Wow.
And because he so lacks self-consciousness, he's playing away and going,
Yeah. He's delighted by his own playing.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. It's not. He knows it's not his own.
Yeah.
He's delighted by what's coming through.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get so far beyond I'm playing.
Yes. And that's the same as composing, right? You know it's not your own.
Yes. Well, that's very, like, I still remember the first time I was actually around the corner here in a different house with an upright piano, late at night, dark, and I'm playing, and this ragtime. And I didn't even know what ragtime was, other than I remember Bob Barcham teaching me a very basic version of Marvin Hamlish's version of Scott Joplin's The Entertainer.
The Entertainer, yeah.
Other than that, and I didn't even know that was ragtime until later on.
Yeah.
And yes, this ragtime, and I remember I'm like this, like with my ear to the piano, and I had this sense, there's got to be some poor schmuck who used to play ragtime in a seedy bar somewhere going, can I play through someone, please? From whatever dimension that is, because it was just so, it was kind of like, well, pick someone else. I don't know how to play ragtime, but it just came through, and it was like another one I did recently that just, I say, it just fell out. Because it all came, just ba-boom, all the words, melody, which is really different to, what you question when you're sitting there, composing. Like, for me, it's never been, I'm going to sit down and compose. It's always been
when you're writing
something
music,
comes and it's okay. Because I kind of feel for, the Bjorns and the McCartneys and whatever, who kind of like, you got to write another album, go to an island, now squeeze some business out. Which is just such another realm. I kind of feel very lucky, even though my mother goes, oh, it's such a waste, why don't you do your music? Because it's like, it's really clear to me that this time round, music was meant to be a hobby. It wasn't meant to be something that I worked at.
Well, a lot of people lose their passion for many, many, many years as a result of being in the business.
Yeah, well, luckily I haven't been in the business, so
So
I can imagine that. I mean, look, I once I was in a jazz band. I think for a year, maybe 2, we did weddings, and it was local. I loved it, but of course, as soon as you got a repertoire, it's just fucking boring.
Right.
And how many times can you play Piano Man? And
I can answer personally about 3,000 and counting. Probably 4,000. Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of when my old boss at Taramara Music said, I wish I had $1 for every Shure SM58 that I've sold. And one of my colleagues said, you do. So I was thinking, I wish I had $1 for every time I played Piano Man, but I got more than $1 for playing that song.
You did.
Where does, this is a very easy question with a very simple answer. Where does music come from? When you're writing? Your ass.
Yeah, all music on the planet comes from Bhakti's ass. His name's not Bhakti Das, it's Bhakti's ass.
Right, okay.
Yeah, no idea. No idea. I'm just glad that it does. And that somehow this time around I ended up with the paint falling on my head in that arena, because I think it's a bit like the spiritual path.
Yeah.
Whereby there is one only because others have gone before us and trod it. So, the same, I believe, would be the same for music, that there is music and a musical path because others have been treading it. And we stand on the shoulders of all of that. The magical mystery of what floats your boat, like what you like listening to, what ends up coming through you, I think is so unique and individual and mysterious in the nicest possible way. You might as well ask, how does an orgasm happen? But on a certain level it doesn't matter because they're just fabulous.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Okay. So.
Which question didn't you just ask?
I'm thinking, what's a good segue? And I've done a terrible job of it so far.
All right. Okay.
So you retired from your professional career last year.
Yeah.
And that career, how do you describe you?
Counselling.
Counselling, yeah.
Simple counselling. That's how I describe it for people.
Yeah. I
drew the line at children and pets.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Do you miss it?
No, not at all. I didn't plan to retire. My mantra for decades has been, why would I retire? I love my work. But yeah, same deal. It just became clear it's time. And haven't regretted it one bit.
Have you focused more on music since?
Yes. I used to just sing a Hanuman Chalisa, which is oh God, well that's now you see we're entering the whole vortex. As a thank you to my guru Neem Karoli Baba, who I developed a relationship with through Ram Dass, who was a seminal teacher of mine. And I used to just, wake up, throw something in my mouth, do a 7-minute Chalisa and go to work.
For those of us that are ignorant, what is a Chalisa?
It's I don't know how many verses, but it takes 6 months to learn, and maybe 30 verses of Hanuman, which is the monkey god, who's an embodiment, an expression of unconditional love. So read Jesus, read Mary, read Buddha, the divine. It's a representation that's just, I guess, because Baba was shone like the sun in the way of being a beacon of unconditional love. What do you give to someone whose only possession is a blanket and who's left their body, 40, 50 years ago? So...
Can you explain that to me? When you say their only possession is a blanket and left the body 40, 50 years ago,
Well, when he was alive, when he was in a body,
okay, yeah,
like the most interesting, I don't know, thing, when you'd walk into a room where he had been, is that there wasn't anything in it. There was a water jug and a cot, and a blanket. So, yeah, he was unusual, not what most people would think in terms of a guru.
Where did he live?
He lived in India, but I remember Krishnas was just saying yesterday, he said, my mantra is Jao, and Jao means get out of here, or in vernacular, fuck off. So, he wasn't the let's have lots of devotees, if there were too many people, he'd just run away.
Right.
But for me, coming back to the whole music more than before, now that I've got more time, that 7 minutes has grown into probably about a couple of hours of singing, Chalisa, other devotional songs, and then, I've written a kind of a devotional song about it. That was the one that fell out, and but I take Van Morrison songs and turn some of them already are devotional songs, hymns to the silence. Have I told you lately I love you? But then I take other ones and just turn them from kind of romantic love songs to devotional love songs, and it's the highlight of my day. So kind of these days my day doesn't really start until about lunchtime. But I kind of like what Krishna says about devotional singing. He says it's not about what you're singing or how you're singing or whatever. It's just that while you're singing devotional songs, you're not likely to be robbing a bank.
I mean, it's a pretty damn good point. And if someone did rob a bank while singing a devotional song, it'd be pretty interesting.
I can see a script in that for Netflix,
Exactly. How do you, when you speak of your spiritual journey to people, how do you deal with people that kind of give you a look of what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, look, that's the good thing about being old and having been involved for ages. Also, when I first started with metaphysics and stuff, I was lucky enough to have teachers who said, listen, let this stuff build in you before you talk about it. Bit like, when you put in a little tree, you put something around it so that the cows don't tread on it, and because it's vulnerable. And, 10 years later, it's a big tree that cows can rub against and gives shade and whatever, so it doesn't need the protection. I probably took that a little bit far because I kind of kept spirituality inside me probably until I was like in my late 40s or whatever, when I ended up reconnecting with Ram Dass physically, because it was in the days where Skype came along, and all of a sudden I went, oh my God, I used to watch the Jetsons and I never thought this would happen in my lifetime. But it was like, oh my God, it's happening.
Yeah.
And he was offering Skype things, and so I had a Skype session with him to say thank you for 30 years of fabulousness, because he was the one who gave me a picture of Ninkaroli Baba when I went to a retreat with him in France. And in the chat, he said, well, if you're in Maui, look us up, and which eventually I did. Long story about getting there, and him, and I asked for a name, Bhakti Das, and he married Dominic and I. But it was all about wanting to say thank you. But in terms of, so it was probably only after that, like it took me about 3 years after asking for a name to actually have enough courage to go, fuck it, if I'm going to live for another, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, I want to do it as, I dedicated my life to service. I wanted a service name, and he gave me that name. And so I thought, fuck it, I don't care anymore. So that's probably my answer to people going, oh, what the fuck? Because, I don't, like, I know my own truth. I don't, if younger, I probably would have been, either I've got to convince the rest of the world of my truth, or please don't criticize me, don't hurt me.
Yeah.
And now it's just what it is, bro, what it is. And, for me, it's just the experience. Like, I can't explain to someone what it is to experience unconditional love. I certainly can't even explain to my own rational mind how a being who I never met in a body was somehow able to get into me somehow, or me into him, or whatever it is that happens, in order that I would experience unconditional love. But I kind of likening it to the world being a place that is constantly enshrouded by cloud. And I mean 100% of the time. So you're born in overcast, you live in overcast, you die in overcast. But somehow, on a bad day or good day, someone, me, Bubba, whatever, ends up being chased up a mountain or something by a bobcat or something. And somehow, man, it just ends up past the clouds and goes, oh my God, it's so warm. There's a sun and it's shining on all of us, and it's there and it exists. And you can imagine when that person comes back down and says, there's a sun up there. You can understand everyone's going to go, you fucking idiot, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as a sun. But you can't take that experience out of the person.
Yeah.
And of course, the interesting corollary with, I don't know, that particular metaphor is, people like Jesus or Maharaji or whoever, I think, are just someone who's been able to pop a hole in the umbrella so the rain can come through, in this case through the clouds so that the sun can come through. And then other people notice that this person's shining. And then we get caught up in, it's Jesus, it's Baba, but it's actually, no, that's there, it's available to everyone, but we're busy. We don't have our umbrella upside down. We've got our umbrella with our rational mind going, no, nothing exists other than what I think it is, even though I didn't choose any of what I think anyway.
Umbrellas seem to be a common metaphor amongst counsellors in my brief experience with counsellors. The first counsellor I saw, I was about 11, and as my dad died, and I started getting bullied pretty badly, and this counsellor said, you've just got to learn, it's raining shit on you. And I was like 11 or 12, and an adult said the word shit. And she said, you've got to learn to put up an umbrella. And I went, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, there was that thing, what colour's my parachute? And there's a lot of umbrella parachute kind of stuff.
Now, in your counselling work, your spiritual side, whilst I'm sure it's ever present for you, your counselling to me anyway didn't really have so much of a spiritual component. Would that be accurate?
Outwardly.
Yeah. Because it probably would have freaked me out.
Well, imagine you're playing one of your compositions to an audience. It's not a good idea to be going A minor seventh, G diminished. Do you know what I mean? You don't really want to be telling them what's behind. You want them to just experience what it is.
Yeah.
So I would say I mean, it's really clear to me in retrospect that I became a vehicle because I was vaguely willing, and because of whatever the karma or life agenda is, my relationship through Ram Dass to Neem Karoli Baba, because I look back and I can see how just, I don't know, modalities that I learnt that were my entry level into counselling, and the connection between spirituality or unconditional love or whatever, it's very clear to me that my counselling became a method of teaching people how to be able to love themselves unconditionally, including all of the human condition, as opposed to, no, when I'll be perfect, then I can, you know, blah, 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 love myself or whatever. Because that was Baba's gift to me, was to take this schmuck full of Jewish guilt and this not good enough, and I call it Boris Nogudnov, and actually somehow give me that experience of it's all fine. This lifetime, next lifetime, doesn't matter, take as long as you need. That being able to love every single part of me in a way that I, my rational mind, my trained mind, my conditioned mind, could not. And so that creates this internal dilemma, albeit, you know, essential, of noticing that my rational mind has these judgments and da-da-da-da-da, and that, but I'm having this experience of unconditionalness that I'm going, oh, this is honey, this is fabulous, oh my God, what a relief. And this part, not being able to get any purchase with this one, because they're just so different, and yet both part of me, like right hand, left hand, and, well, I don't know, which is my better hand, the right one or the left one?
You, look, I don't want to go on about too much about how amazing you were in my life, and I've told you many times, and I'm eternally grateful for it. But
I need an ego boost. Joking.
We spent a good, solid year of you seeing me pretty much once a week for 2 or 3 hours a week, and you know, what you taught me in that time was extraordinary and life changing. Have you ever developed an elevator pitch that you could somehow condense a year's worth of counselling into a pitch? Pitch is a really bad word, isn't it?
I know what you're saying, and the answer is the basics of healing in a conflict, which is the modality that developed around me, basically where very extremely dissociative clients, like multiple personalities and dissociative identities, and I specifically say not the disorder part, not MPD, not DID, because these are functions, not dysfunctions. It's just that you have to understand the trauma to understand the function of the dissociation. But what it's come down to in terms of what you could say to someone in an elevator, as long as it's a reasonably high building, is that there's only 4 disturbing behaviours. They're very much what we know: internal criticism, acting out, passive aggression, and self-distraction. And that's it.
Can you repeat those again, please?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Internal criticism.
Yeah.
Acting out.
Yeah.
Passive aggression.
Yeah.
Self-distraction. That's it.
Okay.
And, you know, if you overlay, this is what you have to do when you're a child, this is what you can do when you're in adolescence, this is what you end up doing when you're an adult, and when you've got all of these levels of override, someone needs a drink. Someone needs Netflix and unending series. And it doesn't matter what it is. Over the counter, under the counter, socially acceptable, socially unacceptable. So but you would end the elevator pitch by saying none of this stuff is anything going wrong. This is evolution trying to happen. This is healing trying to happen. Every single aspect of our life, like our body, is completely total, whole, part of. There's not one thing in our body that isn't part of the whole of our body. There isn't one part of who we are as a being that isn't part of the whole universe. But it's pretty hard to see that when you kind of think, no, I'm separate from everything else and this is all there is. And as Krishnas would say, you know, where you just, all you can see is the movie of me that you go through each day and play that of, which is also part of it. But then there's when at a certain point in time you wake up a little. But for me, it's the infinity symbol of the infinity symbol being one circle that gets twisted and looks like two things, but it's still actually one. And so here we are, we come into a life, we have no choice in what we come into, when we come into, how we come into, what body, what training, what family, what culture, and we play out whatever that is completely non-choicefully. And we have 100 years and all sorts of stuff happens, and it's where we might as well be a cell in our kidney that develops, hangs around for maybe 7 years and then gets replaced by another one. But as a cell we're going, no, I'm not part of a kidney, I'm a cell. Or, you know, it's like, you know, the wave that goes, I'm not part of the ocean, I'm a wave. Oh, no, I'm not anymore. And so when you look at it from that perspective, in the same way that we look at the universe or anything, you know, there's nothing going wrong anywhere in the big picture, in that end of the infinity symbol. In this end of the infinity symbol, I just stubbed my toe and it really hurts and that really shouldn't have happened and really God got it wrong and there should be more hugging and less war and really I think I know better than everyone else, and then you die. But the whole process of evolution continues, and as you and I would notice in our lifetimes, consciousness has gone from almost nothing to exponential, where you and I can have a discussion like this that we wouldn't have been having 100 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do all
that was I think that was Centrepoint Tower based on the length of the elevator chat.
Yeah, it's certainly. Do you know that Uluru is taller than Centrepoint Tower, by the way, and taller than the Eiffel Tower?
Wow, no, I didn't know that.
Uluru is one of the most extraordinary places on Earth. And
it definitely is.
It's taller than both of those buildings.
Yes.
That raised a question in me. Do all humans have trauma in their past?
Well, the premise is, of course, a little flawed because there is no such thing as the past.
Oh, God. Okay. Explain.
Well, you've got to remember, you know...
The amount of times, I just need to explain something. The amount of times that you have said things to me that I've gone, oh, God, he's finally lost it. And then 5 minutes later I go, oh, shit. He's right. There is no such thing as the past. So I'm curious how you're going to get this one. Yeah.
Well, you've got to remember, you know, my greatest teacher has been Ram Dass, and, you know, his seminal book was Be Here Now. And albeit the second half of the book is all about Neem Karoli Baba. I mean, what makes a saint, and I mean the real deal, not someone who's got a few powers, is they're living in all time, which is why Neem Karoli Baba could tell Ram Dass what he was thinking when he was out having a pee 3 nights before that he hadn't told anyone. Because they know the future, the past, which in the present and whatever. But so you'd be aware from your own experience that whatever's going on, whether you call it trauma from the past or fears and concerns about the future, they're all happening now.
Yeah.
They can only happen now.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that we try to self-distract ourselves from is to go, oh no, well that's in the past. Oh, well that's the future. But all of it, the past follows you to now, the future follows you to now. And that's when we experience either, oh my God, this is what happened to me when I was young, or oh my God, this is going to happen next week when I go to this examination. Blah, blah, blah. But it's all happening right now, and there is only now.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, where do we most not want to be? Either in ourselves or in this moment. Which is why one day when I used to be, as opposed to be here now.
Yeah, yeah.
In this moment, because it's the only moment there is. And, you know, my mantra is if you look after the present, the future will look after itself.
I love everything about that, and you haven't lost it. You were right.
I don't know.
So, do all human beings have trauma internally? Have they suffered? Has everyone suffered trauma?
Well, let's just say everyone who I've met.
Yeah.
You know, we get brought up in a kind of a normative bell curve, and the whole psychological and psychiatric industry lives and dies on some sense of normative and hysterical and that which needs medicating, because that's all they got time to do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take into account that we're all evolving, and there's no such thing as, oh, you reached puberty too early and you reached puberty too late.
Yeah.
If you want to look at the weird ways that we look at stuff when we don't actually understand it, like, I don't know, an alien coming in when someone's having a baby, and it's like this woman screaming in an agony, and you know, the alien's going, why aren't you doing anything about this? And of course everyone's going, well, it's all good, it's fabulous, this is what's meant to happen, and this miracle is going to come out of it. But we don't look the same way at a lifetime, or what happens in a lifetime, either the individuals or the whole species, whether you call it the Middle Ages, the Crusades, World War I, World War II, blah, 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 Hitler, Gandhi, you know, this is... But, you know, in order to have something like that, and this is the same as music and standing on the shoulders of everything going before you, or spirituality and standing on the shoulders of everything, someone has to have helped you or given you a leg up to be able to see above the cloud line, to see that there is a bigger picture. And that the bigger picture, you know, the tendency is to kind of go, well, I'll be spiritual so I don't have to be human. Or I'll be human because I'm not going to, you know, what the fuck's spiritual, as opposed to being one and the same at the same time, which is for me why the middle of the lemniscate, the infinity symbol, X marks the spot. And, you know, my painting in the kitchen is of that, and I've superimposed Leonardo's man, in the middle as the X, because that's our thing, you know. It's like we come into a physical body, we go out to formless, we come in, we go out, we come in, we go out. And for me, like when I try to come back from rational mind, oh yes, this isn't good, and da-da-da-da-da, I come back to that, you know, there's a big picture and a small picture, and every time I can come back from my little picture to the big picture, it's like that's a muscle building itself, so that when really terrible, difficult, huge stuff that absolutely takes me, I've got practice on how to come back. Because waking up is hard to do when your mum dies, when your kid's sick, when you don't know where your next meal is coming from. And if you haven't got, and that's the thing, you know, I would sit as a counsellor and notice how few people have something to come back to. But I think very much what informed my work was being able to be like a contact high, be an environment of unconditionalness where I didn't have to worry when I was going in the room, oh, what am I going to deal with today? It was whatever it is part of the universe. And being big enough to be a vessel for whatever it is, no matter how outside the norm it might be. Because, you kind of know that the psychiatric industry, if they were around when the first opponens pollicis longus opposable thumb came out, they would have surgically removed it. Because it just wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I think exactly the same is true of all of the stuff that we call not normal. That is just evolution and mutation. I only realized a few years ago why we die from an evolutional point of view. Because it's like,
why?
Well, so that we can mutate. If no one died, we wouldn't evolve.
Right.
We'd just be the same as we were whenever we started.
Right. Yeah.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. On an
So-
evolutionary level, yeah.
But, for me, I think I don't see any difference between going to sleep at night and going to sleep when your body's finished.
Yeah.
You don't go, oh my God, I'm going to sleep. You go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's all right, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But we don't have that around,
Death.
well, in Western culture anyway. But, Ram Dass, he, had a friend called Emmanuel who was channeled by Pat Rodegas, and, he didn't have a body, it's like, it was always interesting to test people's prejudices. Oh, I don't mind if you're, black or yellow or Jewish, but you've got to have a body. And, because Ram Dass was, working with death and dying, and it's amazing, revisiting his stuff from the 60s, because it's all kind of, the wishes have all come true. Like, psychedelics is what got him out of his mind and into his heart and took him to India, and Timothy Leary and Harvard. Was that a mistake?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
And, so psychedelics are coming back, palliative care, all of the stuff that was like really leading edge and kick them out and illegal. It's like, this is just the growing process. So...
As you mentioned the growing process, I presume you mean of humanity.
The species.
The species.
Yeah.
So how do you think we're going as a species?
Fabulously.
Nice.
I mean, just to finish what I was saying before, when he asks Emmanuel, what should I tell people about dying? Emmanuel goes, well, tell them it's completely safe.
I love that. That is
He says,
fantastic.
it's like taking off a tight shoe.
Yeah.
And, if you think about going to sleep, and when you go to sleep, there's no Bhakti Das, there's no Michael McGlynn. And then you wake up, every single thing about you having been done by something you have no idea about, but that manages to make your heart beat and make your lungs go in and out and heal you before you wake up. And you wake up, we wake up and go, I'm in complete control here.
Yeah.
But what was your other question? Because I went back to Emmanuel.
Oh God, I was too caught up in your answer to go back to
How are we
the
going
question.
as a species?
Yes, how are we going?
Yes, how are we going? Okay.
Thank you.
So to answer that in a way that what I'm saying will make any sense at all, you have to kind of, how you see movies and they start here and it's really hard to understand. Then they do a flashback to what happened before, and then you go, oh, so that's why. So I'm going to do that only with the species.
Okay.
So in order to understand why everything looks like it's completely fucked and we're going to die and we're going off the cliff and la 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 la, and why it's probably not like that, you have to kind of go back to evolution as we know it, from the universe, the Big Bang, stars, planets, Earth, life, animals, beings. I have to come back here because we don't have enough screen. So beings, animals, and then beings, and then... So let's say start here, the beginning of whatever ends up here in 2022 as humanity or the species you're asking about.
Yeah.
And then actually look at the life cycle of that in exactly the same way that we don't have any qualms about the life cycle of you and I, which is we start off as a baby, and then we become a toddler, and then become an adolescent, then an adult, and then midlife, and then sunset and death.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it looks exactly the same as, the T-shirt with the guy crawling and then and then upright and all of the funny things that we do about that. But ultimately that as a species, yes, we started off crawling around, and then we started to stand up, and we didn't have any consciousness, and it was just, in the Garden of Eden. And then we developed the ability to speak and language, and then interacting, and then art and music, but in terms of, you can kind of see that we had a childhood where we were growing physically. Then we developed a sense of identity, me this, you that, which you could call, in toddlerhood. Then we start interacting and rubbing up against each other, and you can see that where we're up to now is our adolescence as a species, where overnight, like if you look at the 60s, like testosterone and estrogen, you go from being this gorgeous little thing at 11 to this unrecognizable something at 13, because you've turned into an adult, an adolescent, someone becoming an adult overnight, and you can see how that's happened in the last century, particularly the 60s, and consciousness. But you can also see what happens in adolescence, where it's like we think we're tough, we think we know everything, but we have very little idea of what it's about or how it's about. And the people with the most power bully whoever they can in the schoolyard. And, there's the buying of the motorbikes and the driving them into brick walls because we don't know how to do that so well. And we've got all this power and nuclear, but we'll take all the rubbish, and like the adolescent put all the rubbish under the bed and think that it's not there, or in the ocean or into space or whatever. And what is it about an adolescent? They can't think about the future that much. They're just not developed. That's what you do when you're an adult. And we're not there yet, which is why there's a few people on the periphery kind of going, no, really, this is not good. But there's still parts of the species that are still in the medieval times. And it's not like you can force someone into puberty any earlier than when it happens.
Yeah.
In the same way that you can't go out and pull the carrot up to make it grow any faster. So yes, we're of course experiencing everything to do with adolescence as a species.
Yeah.
But what do we know about that in terms of our actual experience of the numbers and all of that, which is that talk to a parent of an adolescent and I'll go, oh my God, I think they're going to die. I don't think they're going to make it, And then talk to someone who's a parent of a 30-year-old and they'll go, oh yeah, that was a very difficult stage, adolescence. But what do we know? Out of 100% of adolescents who go through adolescence, yeah, some of them die. Some of them kill themselves, some of them drive into, brick walls. But 99-point-something% of them make it. So, while it is possible that our species is that 1% that doesn't make it, the likelihood is incredibly low. Is it true that over the next, I don't know what time to put it on, but exponential growth is going exponentially.
Yeah.
So I would say sometime over the next 100 to 1,000 years, which is nothing, it's a drop in the ocean in terms of actual time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to recognize the species and you're not going to recognize the planet because of the interaction between the species and the planet. And yes, all sorts of things might happen, but the likelihood of nothing making it is incredibly low. So no, yes, in my little self, I despair at all of the inhumanity and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And in my big self, I'm just going, yeah, this is going to be a very difficult period of time until kind of adulthood comes along, without holding my breath, but seeing it as I see, you know, my kids are 25 and 30, and just seeing these glorious beings that I remember when one of my kids was 14 and looking in my eye going, oh, fuck off out of my life, and doing stuff. You know, I remember going to a party that they were at, and there's burning boxes coming out of the house, and 20 people coming out of a mini mining with as much alcohol as they can get. And you look on and you go, they're not going to make it. And they've become glorious human beings by going through that process, because they have to individuate. So if you just see it in the little picture, you're going to freak out.
Yeah.
But if you can see it in the little picture and the big picture, you know, I realize that for me,
I love that.
It's all about the moment, this moment, like just being with you. This is the moment. Never mind what I had for breakfast. Never mind what I'm going doing for dinner. I mean, I remember when Ram Dass was nearing the end of his life, and this is after his stroke, when he's gone from being able to be fabulous speaker and make stuff really clear because of an intellect, and of course he lost all that, and all he could do was exude love, which was really hard for him, and really fabulous in a way, because he was forced to go from his head to his heart in the most experiential way. And they were all having dinner, and I think Krishnas or someone said, oh yeah, I can't wait for dessert. And Ram Dass goes, be here now. Yeah. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
But it's so hard, you know.
Well, it is, and it's so hard that I can't even live with it for a second before asking you a question about the future.
Fire away.
Do you ever indulge in trying to think about what humanity is going to be like in 100 years or 1,000 years? And do you ever indulge in trying to actually predict it?
Look, while my rational mind, you know, has its notions of, you know, where things are going, because it's so obvious where things are going in terms of the short term. Like you kind of know what the news is going to be like next week or next year.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be more of the same.
Yeah.
Maybe more extreme. On that level. But, you know, for me, the underneath question is, would I really want to know what my life was going to be about at the beginning? And the answer is no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's something about just living it.
Yeah.
Just being it.
That's why I don't read the back of a book before I read it, because I don't want to know what's about to. I don't like people telling me what's going to happen in a movie. If someone says it's a great movie, it's about, and I go, nah, I don't want anything else. Just tell me it's great. I'll watch it.
That's it. My favourite thing was just the other week. I went to a 50th at a restaurant. No menus. They decided, you know, whoever it was who had the birthday, just ordered a whole heap of stuff, and it was just so fabulous to go, oh, look at that, as opposed to, oh my God, what am I going to decide? Will I get it wrong? How will it be? So, for me, all of this stuff is in the moment, because knowing that the part of us that feels like it wants to know is actually just trying to protect us from our own sadness. The part of us that thinks it knows what the best outcome would be in order to be able to head it off at the pass, which is the essence of why you even ask the question. Because if you know, then you can do something about it and blah, blah, blah. But I can tell you, from my own experience, I look back and I just go, thank God my life did not turn out the way I was planning it, because I can see like the amount of bullets that I dodged because other forces were taking my life in ways that weren't. I had 5-year plans, and oh my God, if they'd have happened, oy, oy, oy. But I thought they were fabulous at the time.
Yeah.
And it's a very much a both thing. You have to go through the fundamentalness of childhood and thinking that you know and thinking that what you're doing is choiceful, and to get to a place where you realize that none of it's choiceful.
Yeah.
And then when you realize how limited what you're going to experience in a lifetime is, at that point, if you get there a little bit, you realize, well, okay, there's only a very little bracket of what a Bhakti Das or a Michael McGlynn is going to be able to do this lifetime.
Yeah.
Then you kind of get to this place of surrender that we're not good with in the West, which is, I wonder what the universe is attempting to bring through me. How could I collaborate with whatever it is that's attempting to use me in order to come into form?
Yeah.
Because my sense with that, infinity symbol is that we come into form in order to have a relationship with formlessness, if that's not too far out.
I have a tiny little brain, so I struggle. I'm going to have to sit with that one. But like many
let me help you out with it for 2 seconds before we go on to the next subject.
Yes.
You think that you don't have a relationship to formlessness, but I know that you've been in love. And I know that, for example, you still feel loved by your dad, and you still feel love for your dad. I'm using him as an name because he's formless.
Yes.
And I hear the sentence, he is, which erroneous, formless.
Yeah.
Okay, that is formless. In other words, love is formless. Doesn't have molecules. You can't point to it. It's no 5 senses.
Yeah.
And yet, I would venture to suggest that if you had to tally up all of the experiences in your life between physical ones, including orgasm, and love, you'd probably say love, albeit formless, is the, if not one of the, most important experiences of your life.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm saying you already do it. You don't.
Yeah.
The rational mind is so strong, it'll say, yeah, but meanwhile, give me a hamburger.
Yeah, totally.
So, I think we come in to experience being in form, and if we're lucky, or eventually, and I think this, you're asking what's my prognostication. I think eventually the whole species, not just the leading edge at the moment, will develop a relationship with formlessness, love. I mean, I think that's why God is love.
Yeah.
But I don't mean romantic love. I mean love, which is unconditional love, because God or the universe is not having a dualistic relationship to evolution. It just is, and whatever it is just is, and fabulous. And when you and I can get there, even for a moment, it's ecstatic, it's ecstasis, it's what we then try to get back to, whether by drugs or by orgasms or by something.
Yeah.
Anyway, now you can ask your question.
No, that's fantastic. It's, you've always had a knack, as I alluded to before, of saying things that I go, for fuck's sake. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, I'm on board with that. There was one concept.
I should have been a salesman.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
I missed my calling.
I never knew I wanted that vacuum cleaner, but I love it. There was a concept that you explained to me many times, and it took me a long time to get an inkling of understanding of it. And my understanding is limited enough that I find it very difficult to explain it to others.
I'm lost already.
The concept that you spoke about was that everyone is trustworthy and no one is trustworthy at the same time. And once I wrap my head around my interpretation of it,
yeah.
that really was a game changer.
I wanna kind of re-quote it.
Yes, please.
All right, because this is where Chinese whispers get. Going to a dance, send 3 and 4-pence, instead of going to advance, send reinforcements. So, the first premise is that everybody's untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Because, one day we can't be bothered, one day we're sick, one day we're dead, one day we don't want to.
Stuck in a traffic jam.
Whatever it is. So we're, on that level, this notion of I trusted you and you betrayed me. It's like, well, it's always going to happen because I haven't met anyone who's been able to be even trustworthy with themselves. But, Bhakti's trust cycle is, therefore you can't trust anyone, so it's only a matter of time, so that you're not shocked by it and you're not surprised by it. But the key is where you realize that the only trust that's really important is to be able to trust yourself, that when the other person turns or changes, you look after yourself by getting away from whatever that is. Doing what I call stop or I'm leaving, which is why so few people on the planet have any ability to navigate conflict, either effectively or sensitively or both. And you can see this internationally, nationally, family, and that's our next learning. If you want to talk about prognostication, is how to navigate conflict effectively and sensitively in all of these spheres. But so that you're going into a relationship eyes wide open, knowing that your best friend, your parent, your family member, your most trusted politician, whoever it is going to be human, but that when that happens, you can get out of harm's way as opposed to staying in it. When you can trust yourself not to hang around when someone's treading on your toe, then you can trust everybody, because it's a very different sort of trust. Because you're trusting yourself to be in relationship with your own humanity and everyone else's humanity, as opposed to, well, I'm going to only be in relationship with people who I feel I can put my egg in their basket. Of course, and it's only a matter of time before they tread on your egg in the basket. And then it's like, oh.
And so is the biggest trick in all of that to learn how to trust yourself, to extricate yourself from those situations?
Absolutely, which you can only do, by knowing that it's possible. When you're in the child stage, you're completely dependent on your parents. So this is where, the simplicity of those 4 mechanisms and how to work with them and how to bring healing, because it's not from this moment in time. It's like when the child is in that situation, they can't get out of harm's way, which is why they have to do all the self-distracting and dissociating from stuff to survive. But then when you're later on and you're an adult and you know that you're not going to die if your parents die, then this is why it has to happen afterwards. The healing has to happen because, it was a war zone, there was nothing we could do. Now you're back and it's all safe. Now we can deal with the trauma. But of course we don't like trauma. So we take a pill, we distract ourselves. The opposite of Pac-Man. We go, no, I'm not going to gobble those white things. I'm not going to get a cherry. I'm going to sit here and hopefully not have to gobble anything because it's all too hard. As opposed to none of the stuff's hard anymore, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to feel angry, frightened, or sad, all of which you've experienced and haven't died from. But when you're a kid, it all feels life-threatening. So when you know, I mean, you know, my son just told me yesterday that, and, you know, he'd broken up in a relationship recently, and he went, I was able to have a really good cry with permission inside, and even throw a bit of, while I was in it, I was like, oh, is there anything else I need to cry about? And I was just going, wow. In terms of, you know, you're asking prognosticating the future, it's like, if that doesn't give you hope that things can change, because I can tell you that was not happening in my childhood or adulthood or whatever.
Children should be seen but not heard.
Well, and no permission for the feelings that we have. So coming back to that thing of, well, you know, it's possible to trust yourself, not in the way of faith, but in the way of confidence, because it's like your experiences, I can fully experience it, therefore you're not afraid of them. Because when you're not afraid of sadness, you're not trying to do that thing we were talking about before, which is try to work out what's going to happen in order to head it off at the past. You can just let life, your own personal one, the species one, happen, and be really happy when fabulous things happen at the opening ceremony of the Olympics, or the Paralympics even more, and when people are dying in Ukraine. And be able to grieve, you know, feel all of your happiness and all of your sadness. Because for me, those are the moments, you know, the crossing over of that infinity symbol is when, and I've been at so many funerals where we're laughing and crying at the same time. And for me, it's like that question about the music.
That's when the ultimate beauty.
The music's being played and listened to at the same time.
Yeah. I'm producing a song at the moment, and it makes me laugh about 10 seconds after bringing me to tears. And I was saying to the songwriter, Greg, I said, that to me is the most beautiful thing, that I'm laughing through my tears. And I just think it's one of the most extraordinary gifts, you know, to give me as a listener.
Formless. Formless. That experience, the crying, laughing, it has no form, but it's the thing that you notice, you describe as the juiciest thing. And can you see, you want to say on the planet, but you can really only say in and around, because it's not even in you. It's like, because you can't point to it, but it's in and around, and it's interactive, and it's and of course, this is what, you know, it's always hard, you know, when people talk about spirituality, because it's like, well, what the fuck is it?
Yeah.
It's just this pointing to the moon. It's a word we use that means, I mean, that was
we talked about that the other night.
Exactly. The song that I just wrote, it starts off, how to write a song about something with no name. It's like, because, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What do you say to someone who feels incapable of seeing the beauty and is just in the midst of despair?
Well, the metaphor is walking or swimming out to whatever depth they are at, which might even be way beyond your own comfort zone, to wherever they are, walking to that place, turning around and holding their hand, looking at life from that perspective, being with them in their experience of what's going on. And I can kind of tell you from, you know, probably one of my more extreme clients who nothing could happen, trapped in their own room because of their experience of fears of being out of the room, and you know, I've had that, you know, people who couldn't leave their own house, couldn't leave their own town. And in this case, with this person, no therapy could be done because of all of the machinations of talking of trust and whatever. You know, it's like he'd been through the mill and had been betrayed in his own eyes as by all these people. Hence, well, you're going to do the same. That's the projection, you know, onto me, and being able to understand that, and literally doing the Sidney Poitier in To Sir with Love, you know, in a really rough school where you just throw the textbooks out the window and just be there now with whatever that is. Because for me, that was kind of like the hardest thing to do, was to go, but I'm a counsellor, I'm here to do counselling. And it's like, no, you may one day get to do some counselling, but you can't be holding your breath. So I had to get to the place where I was absolutely willing to just sit in the prison cell with him, literally with my hand through the bar, holding his hand for as long as that took. And if nothing happened, at least he's got someone to hold his hand until he dies.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Now I can say, and I can only say this because it only happened recently, even though I've retired, I kind of kept this person on because it just karmically, it was just life agenda. No, this isn't finished, and was able to, after 3 years or something, finally, and I think partly because he was older, we got to do a little bit of work with the 4 mechanisms and with bringing healing, even though it's an 18-year-old working with 1 or 8-year-old parts. And just from doing that work, and the work, I would say, you know, probably took us somewhere between 2 and 4 hours, maybe 1 or 2 sessions, but it took 3 years to get to the point where any work could happen.
Yeah.
And most of that work was, you know, getting him to trust himself and his own experience, that his own experience was not an aberration. It wasn't deviant. It was exactly the lawful unfolding. But then, you know, I went traveling and came back, and what had been internal criticism, oh yeah, fucking you can't do anything, that was absolutely, completely paralyzing, he described, even though he didn't see it as a big deal, that now the criticism happens and it's just a moment, and then he moves on.
Wow. Wow.
Like, wow.
Can you see a big change?
Well, that is the big change, you know.
Right, yeah.
His parents are going, yeah, well, when's he going to get a job?
Right, yeah, okay.
And of course, that's the external. You know that this is someone whose life experience in the formless has changed. Who cares what happens with the form, what he does or doesn't? I mean, this is an unbelievably, almost genius intellect.
Right.
But it doesn't help if the formless isn't, if the process isn't, you know. But hopefully that answers the question of, you know, when someone, I mean, for me it's that thing of, you know, the two footsteps in the sand. It's like, you know, you have to be willing to carry someone until they can carry themselves. It's no different to what we do with children. We carry them until they can carry themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a thing in counselling that says, oh, you're not meant to do, and it's like, yeah, bollocks. It's like you do what you need to do to get the job done.
When you look back on your career, do you process your success and the impact that you've had on people's lives? Do you allow yourself to have moments of hubris?
What is hubris?
I don't know. I think it's the right word. Isn't hubris a little bit of self-aggrandizement? I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you ever sit back and say, I've been really blessed to have changed people's lives?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
But the thing is, when I started off, I thought it was me. So yeah, definite hubris. It's like, yeah, I really helped that person more.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Then, through the process, and for me, with Bubba and stuff, and seeing how that, he had to help me get out of my own way. Yeah. And the only way that you can do that is by really thinking that the I, or whatever you think your identity is just the spacesuit, as Ram Dass would call it. And to allow, that process to happen. But yeah, on an egoic level, it's like I go, yeah, well done. But the distinction is like with the garden. I can definitely say, well done, you tilled the soil, you watered it, and you put it in a nice place where it gets the sun. Yeah. And I can't say to myself, oh yeah, I made the seed.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're not up to that yet. It's like we the best we can do is mimic and think we're fabulous at it. We can't make a fucking seed, a tiny little thing. And yet that seed, and whether it's our seed or our body or the seed itself or the tree or any of these things, the DNA that
or an idea
has in
even.
it what seems to be all the wisdom in the universe and knows how to become a tree or a dog or whatever. It's like, if that doesn't tell us how little we know.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course it's that duality of knowing that on the one hand we know so little, on the other hand owning and working with the tiny little bit that you do. So yeah, I mean, look, I've been incredibly blessed, and for me there's the double blessing, which is I know I'm blessed. It's one thing to be blessed.
Yes.
It's another thing to know how blessed you are.
And that's a blessing.
And that's a third blessing. Yeah, absolutely.
And then there comes the infinity symbol again.
Exactly. And, just to share that, with you, to have that very conspiratorial smile that says, I know what you're talking about. And that's like what I would call spiritual lovemaking.
Yeah, yes.
And sometimes it's actually better than an orgasm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it can last longer,
Oh, I mean, I remember there were the session where you kind of taught me how I can have a real relationship with my father, who passed away almost 40 years ago. The euphoria that I felt lasted a long, long time, and it's lived with me since.
Well, that's grace of him, because it's like, how could you get that from someone who doesn't have experience having a relationship with something that doesn't have form? And I wouldn't have been able to help you with that as a 20-year-old, because I would have been, son, what son? I can only see cloud. So this is where it's all grace.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some little practical techniques that people can use to express sadness or anger or fear?
Look, it's not the expression of it. Plenty of people express anger. Plenty of people are terrified of their own shadow. And plenty of people cry. It's understanding what the purpose of each of these things are in their own context. So it's not about, when I was first doing personal development where, in the 60s it was primal work and on your marks, get set, cathart. And do catharsis it does, emptying the trash does make a difference.
Yeah.
But if you've got the same amount of trash coming in and the same amount of trash going out, eventually you kind of want to deal with, lowering the carbon footprint and maybe not buying so much stuff that has packaging. So like in present moment things, being able to recycle soft plastics is a game changer because it takes your rubbish footprint from about 100% down to 20.
Yeah.
So similarly, with feelings and expression of that, it's not about whether you can. Well, first of all, it's about permission. But you can only kind of have permission when you understand that there's a purpose to anger, which is to try to rearrange things in order to override expression into paralysis, in order that we not be sad about stuff we can't change. So it's like, I'll bop you so that you won't have called me a dickhead. Now, can you see what's nutty about that? Because it's already happened. And that even when you do succeed at bopping them, nothing's changed with the part of you that has stuff about, he called me a dickhead. And why do you have stuff about being called a dickhead? Because there's a part of you calling yourself a dickhead because mum and dad called you a dickhead, and it goes all the way back to whatever you believe in, amoebas or Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, what's the quick pill for the punter, I would just say, go to healinginnaconflict.com and learn a little bit about the different parts of us and what their purpose is in early childhood, and then what happens later on that gives us the opportunity to bring healing to that which needs it. And healing in a conflict isn't the only one. There's internal family systems, Dr. Richard Schwartz. There's compassionate inquiry by Gabor Mate. All of these are leading edge, very clear, very experiential. Like, these are two other people. I'm the new kid on the block kind of thing. Who from their own experience noticed that what they were doing, either as an MD or a counsellor, wasn't working, and whose clients, by following them, showed them that, they're a different path, they have different purposes. Out of the three, I'm unbelievably biased because understanding the four mechanisms and how to do internal effective intervention, healing in a conflict is just so simple, so clear, so repeatable, and self-evident. You don't have to believe anything. It's just noticing what your experience is, but being able to put it into a context so that you understand why it is parts are angry, not because something's going wrong, but because that's attempting to change something. Why it is that parts are frightened, because their job is to stop you from doing stuff that might have you get killed. But when that's going on in a relationship in Sydney, somewhere where nothing's going on that's life-threatening, but that's how you're feeling, you can see that this is healing trying to happen. And to know that behind all of that is the need to be able to be sad about what we can't change, whether it's our past, whether it's our trauma, whether it's life that's going on, because eventually you get to the point where you're beyond your own self and you're in a moment of a little bit more than your own self, whereby it's painful that there is pain on the planet, the whole bodhisattva thing, where you're not just interested in your own well-being. You want well-being for everyone, because in the same way that your right hand pulls a thorn out of your left hand, I want to help any other person on the planet that I can, but you kind of have to have an understanding of life agenda and karma and stuff that was mysterious and beyond our pay grade to kind of not get into, I feel like I need to rearrange the world and change the world and it needs to be done by next Tuesday, but that the very thing that you and I are doing today, why am I doing this interview? Because you're on my path. You called me and said, would you? And I said yes, because I had the time and I could. So I know that I'm not meant to be helping out in Ukraine because I'm not in Ukraine. I know that I am meant to be helping out with my son because he's here. I know that I am meant to be having this thing because that's what I'm doing. So my definition of karma or life agenda is precisely exactly what it is that is on your path right now. That's it. Not, well, when I've meditated enough, or when I've gone off to a mountaintop, or when I'm perfect, or when I'm married, or when I've got children, or when I'm financially independent. It's, this is it. Until it's the next, this is it, which becomes the this is it.
I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and I said the little phrase that I just find so comforting is, it is what it is. And he said that he'd always found that a very silly phrase. And he said, why do you find it so great? And, you know, I'm not going to go into it because it was probably a bullshit answer, but it is what it is just such a beautiful, lovely thing for me to hold. Rather than what should be will be. It's just what will be will be.
Isn't there a song by that name in Italian? Que sera, sera.
Que sera, sera. Yes.
Yes. Anyway, I think what you're describing is a popping out moment where one part of you is going blah, 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 blah about this, that, or the other, life, the universe, and everything, you know, what's going wrong in the world, or blah, blah, blah. And one part of you pops out for a moment and goes, profoundly, it is what it is. And I think what you're describing, you know, in terms of your interaction with your friend is that, as that happens a lot of the time in relationship, is you're in different moments. Like in relationship, if I'm triggered, my wife can be looking at me with the most loving, adoring eyes, and the umbrella, to use that metaphor, is up, and I can't feel a fucking thing. But what you'd know is when you're both looking at the sunset and going, it is what it is, man. Because there's no explanation for it. You can't describe it. There's just the experience of it. And usually, by the time you're going, it is what it is, the moment's passed, and you're just trying to hold on to it by describing it. But if you're both in that, you're going, it is what it is, and you're just going, yeah, man. But if one of you is kind of going, you know, well, you know, if, you know, Boris Johnson isn't the leader of England, then, you know, that means that this and da-da-da-da-da. If you're in that and, you know, your pension is about to disappear or something, and someone comes along and says, well, it is what it is, pal, you're likely to get kicked in the cobblers. And this is what I mean about in it but not of it. But fully able to be in it. But for me, the only way that I've been able to be in it in the way that I am fully is because there's a part of me that's able to be out of it as well, which is for me what, you know, meditation is, in terms of just coming back from my primary identity and just having a moment of seeing myself as this speck of dust that comes in and goes out, that and that has complete compassion for the part of me that goes, but, you know, I might die tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I'm too, as Bubba would say, nan, tal. Too much this, not enough that. Because I'm able to see it as the spacesuit.
Yeah.
And, you know, that part of me is able to go, yeah, well, it is what it is. You know, this is the only body I'm going to get and the only personality I'm going to get and whatever. But be able to be fully in and compassionate when I'm having a hard time or when my mate's having a hard time, and being okay with, you know, getting it wrong by everyone else and everyone thinking that, yeah, I'm full of shit, or that, yeah, it's okay to... I mean, if I read you the lyrics to my song, you'll get it, that it's okay to fuck up.
Yeah.
I'll read it to you as a poem.
Okay. Please do.
It's the best thing since sliced bread. Try to get a taste before you're dead. Sort out all that stuff inside your head and discover there's a source of love instead. How to write a song about nothing, about something with no name. How to set your sights towards what you can't explain. We're not apart from anything, we are a part of everything, a small part of the whole universal mixing bowl. It's the best thing since sliced bread, and that just keeps going on in between each verse. It's not inside or out, it's around and all about. Go through all your doubt until the truth comes out. Try to love what's here, here's the only there is. Your truth is all you know, when it's not that, let it go. It's the best thing since sliced bread. Try to get a taste, da-da-da. The process can begin when there is no out or in, a path that has no end that must drive you round the bend, because it's only round the bend that the messages they send get more clearly understood than from the place that you once stood. It's the best thing since sliced bread. So follow your own path, never mind the aftermath. Everything you lose is just stuff you didn't choose. May God Guru and Big Self put your ego on a shelf. Love that ego, let it know, but don't let it run the show. It's the best thing since sliced bread, da-da-da. We're all a work in progress, it's okay to make a big mess. Love the way you're learning, each day more discerning. Do the best you can each day, do not wish your life away. Have compassion for the ways that you're bumbling through this maze. It's the best thing since sliced bread. When you realize it's inside and it's been there from the start, when you feel it everywhere and know it's coming from your heart, you'll know everything that's done is the playing of the one. You're essential to the whole, from your ego to your soul. It's the best thing since sliced bread, dum-de-doo. The fact that we know love is a blessing from above. Remember that each day as you give that love away. It's the best part of our living. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Take some time throughout the day to be grateful in some way. 'Cause it's the best thing since sliced bread. Try to get a taste before you're dead. Sort out all that stuff inside your head and discover there's a source of love instead.
Bravo. That is quite beautiful. Incredibly beautiful. As a matter of fact, I really would love to write those words down and maybe pop it in the description here.
Yeah, sure. I'll send them to you.
That is, because stuff like that.
I sent you a recording of that, didn't I?
Of that one?
I thought I had.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please do. That, they're really stunning words.
They just fell out.
Yeah, wow.
It was. What do they call it? A data dump.
Yeah. Stream of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
How long did they take to fall out?
That's what I mean. Like maybe an hour.
Wow.
Like, yeah. That's how you kind of know it's not you.
Yeah.
It's just like,
exactly.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Because you're not saying, it's
But-
the best. You just get a fully formed.
Well, I wouldn't say fully
Sentence.
formed. You know, there's bits that you have to tweak.
There's certain sentences and
Yeah.
ideas that come to you fully formed.
Yeah.
You're not painstakingly putting them together brick
But,
by
you know,
brick.
you could say either that song took me an hour or that's taken me my whole fucking life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the answer's both, right?
I loved, you know, when they were interviewing Elaine from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the late night people, you know, said, "So, what's it like being an overnight success?" She goes, "Yeah, because it only took us 4 fucking years to become an overnight success."
That's right. Exactly. Should everyone see a mental health professional?
No. Only see
Okay.
one if there's a need. So, no,
So-
absolutely not. In the same way that, you know, as much as, like, being able to do inner work is fabulous, if you don't need to do inner work, fuck, don't do it. You know, if you can find any other way of doing, like, I only do stuff when nothing else works. So, you know, and I'm saying that
How does
on a
one
certain
know?
level, of course, I would say, like all good mechanics, you know, bring your car in for a service on a semi-regular basis so that you don't end up on a highway and it dies on you.
Yeah.
So on that level, of course, I'd say it's always good to get a check-up and see where things are and whatever. It's just that you kind of know that a woman who's born into Sharia law, who's looking at the world through a slit in a piece of fabric, doesn't have the opportunity or the option or the ability, and it's not just her or the person, the male in that culture, who's just as hijabbed in terms of cloaked in this is the only way to be. Not dissimilar to when we come into a Western one of, well, this is how the way to be, and you know, business
Toughen
or capitalism or I don't know, whatever it is. No, I guess what I'm saying is I trust in the processes of life that, I guess what I'm saying is enjoy life for as long as you can. And then when you notice that you're not able to, see a counsellor or someone who knows a little bit more, who can help you in fully suck the very marrow out of life in order to be able to have a rich experience of your day. And I use that language rather than saying to be happy, because I've been to some of the most glorious funerals that have been incredibly sad, not happy, and they've been some of the richest experience I've had in my life. So you get to a point where you realize it's not about the cultural norm, which is be happy, and when you're not happy, try to get back to happy.
Yeah.
Because that's where it all goes to shit, pretty much.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was talking to my mate yesterday, and we were talking about these concepts, and I said, whenever I talk to friends who are going through a breakup, I always say to them, at least you know you're alive when you're going through it. Because when you're going through a breakup, the despair and all the rest of it just reminds you that you are super fucking present and super alive in that moment.
In exactly the same way that it was at the beginning when you're in love. It's like you don't get more alive than that.
That's right.
And literally the one at the end there is just literally the yang of the yin, or the dark of the light, or the it's the symmetry. And it doesn't matter whether it's the breakup of the total relationship or what I experience almost every fucking day, which is the breakup in the day. 2 seconds ago you were the light of my life and I loved everything that came out of you, and right now you seem like the devil to me. And to be able to go between that, whether it's from relationship to relationship or within the same one, to see it as the richness, because you kind of know that if you didn't have contrast, I don't know, like if you can imagine any food that you maybe love, try to imagine that's the only food you've ever eaten and will ever eat, and you kind of go, really?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I had a question pop into my mind last night, and I thought, oh, that's a bit silly. I wonder if I'm going to ask it. And I think deep down I knew I was going to ask it.
I'm glad that we've got an insurance policy there, because I feel a lot better about it.
Yeah. Good. I know you were being a smart ass, but good anyway. I've never asked this question non-rhetorically before.
All right, go for it.
But
what's the worst that could happen?
How good is life?
So
non-rhetorically.
Non-rhetorically, like how good is life?
Yeah. From your perspective.
From my perspective. It's good if the definition of good is rich. And I'm saying it's good as a description of how good is the universe, how good is life that includes death. You know, if you're talking little picture, it's as good as whatever moment you're in. You know, like you're talking about when people are breaking up and stuff. But it's when you're able to pop out for a moment or more than a moment, and you're able to experience the richness of both good and bad, life and death. I'm going to have to go and get a drink. But I want to kind of add that, you know, you're getting me on a good day. If you'd have asked me that question 2 weeks ago when I was having an extremely difficult time, you know, I would have told you it's a shit sandwich. I guess...
Is it not?
What's that?
Is it not?
I don't know.
Now?
Someone once said, you know, life's a shit sandwich, but the more bread you've got, the less shit you've got to eat.
The bread's the least interesting bit of a sandwich. But we digress.
No, I think he was talking about money.
Right. Yeah.
So
money shmoney.
I think, you know, why I would say, you know, how good is life is because it includes the experience of awareness that allows me that even when things are just going horrendously as far as my relational identity, what I think should happen in my relationship and why my wife should be not doing this and doing that and blah, 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 is you get to a point where you can see that while it's happening. So it's not you're in it and then you pop out of it. You can see it as part of the passing show while it's happening, not in a way that can leapfrog it or not experience it, but you're not trying to. You're going, oh yeah, this is one of those. Like when you get sick and you just go, oh, well, I got to go to bed and I'm probably going to be here for a few days. Not, oh, I can't. And you can't change it, but you've got a understanding and compassionate relationship with it, and you're not fully in it. You're 99.9%.
Yeah.
As soon as you've lost that 0.1,
yeah,
then you're seriously fucked, because that's all there is, and that's when it is absolutely despairing. So I would say, you know, for me, life's good because it's a really long time since I was completely gone. And I could tell you that definitely for the first 24 years of my life, I was completely gone. There was no one home. Then there was starting to go to kindergarten and learn A's and B's.
You went to kindergarten at 24?
I'm talking spiritual kindergarten, like consciousness kindergarten, where you try to walk and fall over a lot, and you really don't know much of what you're doing, but to kind of go, yeah, life is good because almost all of it has some level of consciousness in it. And for me, you know, doing this 2 hours of devotional singing in the morning, it's like, it feels like it's stretched the envelope of you know, this thing of you know, how you feel when you give a present, and who's getting more, the receiver or the giver?
There was a study done on that, actually.
Yeah.
Where they gave two groups of people $100 or whatever it was. One of the groups had to go out and buy themselves something for $100, and the other group had to go and buy something for someone else for $100. And they measured their happiness, their feelings of happiness before and after. And the people that had to buy something for someone else all had increased happiness over the other group.
Yeah.
Which is just not surprising in the slightest.
No. So I think that for whatever reason, because I think I do it because I like doing it, but it wouldn't be the same if I didn't have something to sing it to. And of course then it's a bit bizarre because I said the word something to sing it to, which is not a thing. So that's this kind of mysterious thing of, you know, who am I singing to? Because I'm actually just saying thank you for grace. What is grace? It's all grace, which comes back to, you know, is life good? How good is life? When you realize it's all grace. You know, we have this thing, no, it's grace when I get the parking spot, or it's grace when I meet the person, you know, in Italy without planning it, or it's grace when I win lotto. But when you can see that the whole thing is grace, including what you like and what you don't like, how good's life?
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love you very much, and thank you so much for this chat.
Absolute pleasure. Love you too, Michael.
It's been an amazing journey that I've had with you, but just to...
I thought we were still having it.
No. I'm writing you off after this. I've got you on the podcast.
I knew I shouldn't have mentioned the war.
You're expendable. No, it's been an amazing journey that we've had so far, and just to be able to share that with, you know, however many people end up, you know, checking out this podcast.
Could be just for us.
It's probably just you and me, and maybe a couple
thank you
of others.
for forcing me to put this shit into words.
No worries. You've never struck me as someone that's had a problem putting concepts into words.
Like I said, I really only came out of the closet, like in terms of personal development or spirituality or anything to do with divinity, when I when I changed my name and started to use my name, and that's only like maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago or something.
10 years?
It's not long.
Yeah, was it around 2009?
Can't remember.
Yeah.
Dominic would know. She's the
one with
library
the memory
of
bank.
time.
Yeah. Do you tell her there's no such thing as time, darling?
Only if I don't want to have a good day. It's like, do you really want to poke the bear?
Hey, I just thought of one thing. Do you ever come up with an analogy or a way of explaining something and sit back and go, "Fuck, that was a good one"?
Listen,
and feel quite
from very early on, like this is when I was 24, I was dubbed the king of analogies. And the thing is that it's like music. I have no idea where they come from. Like, I literally send a message off to the file clerk going, I really want to explain this somehow. Can you come up with something? And I have a feeling it's, what Jesus was really good at was coming up with a parable or an analogy or a story that allows someone to have the experience of what that is.
It's almost like a wormhole, isn't it? An analogy.
Yeah, look, it's like, Steiner talks about being, having access to the Akashic records or to, it's all this standing on the shoulders of everything that's come before us. So, it's not like anybody makes up an analogy. They're just tapping into, taking formless and squeezing it through the mincemeat sausage maker of form in order to give whoever's listening an experience of the formless.
Yeah.
So we're back.
The one that keeps coming to my mind is the beach analogy that you made before. I hadn't heard that. And that just gave me such a clear understanding of the concepts that preceded it. Just by simply saying you don't freak out about how horrible it was for the rocks and the water. You just enjoy the beauty of the beach. And I'm like,
But also,
for
I want
my pea brain, that helps.
I want to kind of pay homage to, I've had such good teachers.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I first heard that one, like, that's not one I actually made up.
Yeah.
That I actually heard from Thomas Crum, I think, who's an Aikido up there kind of guy, in conflict resolution and stuff. But also, it's like, I've been listening to Ramdas tapes for 30, 40 years, and lots of other stuff. Plus, my karma or life agenda has been sitting, talking to people, for decades.
Yeah.
And, my tools of trade has been trying to find ways in their language that they can understand what it is that I'm trying to tell them. And my guess is that that's what Bubba's done with me, is he tries to find where it is in me that I can experience that which is formless. How he does that without form, I don't know. That's just a whole other level. I just kind of go, thank you, Baba Ramdas, for all of the stuff, getting kicked out of Harvard, going over to India, coming back, and all of the enigmas and anomalies where, Baba wouldn't let people write about him, wouldn't let people take photos, anything, and said to Ramdas, when he went back to the States, do not talk about me. And of course, what did he do? All he did was talk about Baba without ever saying the word Nim Karoli Baba.
Right.
Yeah, just crazy.
Yeah. Well, thank you again.
Pleasure. Thank you.
I was just thinking about the analogy that Lucas told me once, which is before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes, because then you'll be a mile away from them and you'll have their shoes.
I love it. Very good. Great way to end. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
and thanks for wanting
friend.
to do these.
My pleasure. Thank you for being a guest. It's been a true blessing for me.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Bye.